Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community.
Indian captives, the massacre of Black Kettle and his band are topics on Read About It tonight. Hi, I'm BJ Williams. Michelle Black will tell us about her book, An Uncommon Enemy. Susie Beasley will feature Ruby Soutier. We also have Kids Corner with Heidi Johnson. Doug Benton, Clyde Martin, and Gary Rodriguez also have books. Coming up, Michelle Black.
The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It, with your host, BJ Williams.
Every March, the Oklahoma Center for the Book has its Oklahoma Book Awards banquet, and I get to talk with a lot of the finalists and winners at that banquet. Michelle Black was a finalist in the fiction category with her book, An Uncommon Enemy, and I had a nice long chat with her about her book. Now, Black is a native of Kansas. She was a lawyer, practiced law for some time, also owned a bookstore, and then discovered that what she really wanted to do was write. These days, she is the owner of a small publishing company, a not-for-profit publication of Cheyenne Materials. She also writes fiction. She and her family divide their time between Kansas and Colorado. I think you'll enjoy what she had to say about An Uncommon Enemy. Michelle, what inspired you to write An Uncommon Enemy?
Well, I was researching various parts of American Western history, and I came across the Battle of the Washita, which took place the day after Thanksgiving in 1868. And what attracted me to this story, the historical event, was what seemed like so many modern elements to the story, because the aftermath of it, the basic setup, Custer and the 7th Cavalry went down into the Indian Territory. They attacked the village of Black Kettle, and the problem was Black Kettle was the foremost peace chief of the Cheyenne Nation, and when the Indian agent Edward Wynkoop found out that his village had been attacked and just practically wiped out, he threw a fit. He resigned in protest. He wrote a scathing resignation letter, demanded a congressional investigation. There were congressional hearings on the subject, and the Army was really put on the defensive. And so they began to defend themselves basically on the pages of the New York Times. And so it seemed like as though they were already fighting, the media was already taking a very active role in shaping public opinion, which in turn was shaping public policy, because they were fighting out the battle after it already happened. Then they were fighting a war for public opinion on the pages of the newspapers around the nation. And so just those elements kind of interested me. And I decided to start a fictional story based on it. I wanted to tell the story a little bit from the Cheyenne point of view, but in a way that would be historically believable for those times. And Custer had made a very, very fleeting reference to having found the body of a white woman in the Black Kettle's camp. And that's basically what he was hanging his hat on, saying, we were trying to rescue a white woman, so therefore this excuses all our actions. Well, in my story, I take that little thread and I kind of say, what if she had been found alive, and what if she didn't tell the expected story that the Army was rescuing her? What if she was more like the Comanche captive Sarah Ann Parker, her story, where she had initially been captured, but eventually had assimilated into the tribe, married into the tribe, bore children, was very happily living there, only to be returned to white society against her will by the Army. And so that is basically the premise of An Uncommon Enemy. She is refusing to really help the Army in its war for propaganda, and so it becomes kind of a contest of wills, her version versus Custer's version, and kind of going back into her very strange history of how she ended up in that Cheyenne camp. and made that incredible cultural leap at the time. So that was kind of the historical basis for the story.
Well, one of the things I appreciated about it is something that we never encounter in the textbook history that we read. I mean, they mention briefly the Indian Wars, and of course they always talk about Custer, and occasionally you hear about Crook. But what you never hear is that there were people who said, hey, wait a minute, we signed treaties with these people, and we're out there just murdering them, it seems like, for the fun of it. We are going back on our word. We are treating these people terribly. They are human beings, and we consider ourselves decent people. And that you never encounter, I guess, the diversity of opinion that held. And I think you brought that out very well in here, particularly with one of the soldiers who is, I believe, Custer's aide-de-camp.
Right, Brad Randall.
Starts thinking, hey, wait a minute, this is no way to run a war.
Very true. In fact, I think in my historical research, it really surprised me just how controversial it was. There was a great dichotomy between the East and the West as to how to deal with the Indian question, as they called it. The people in the West were wanting the land. They were saying, let's get rid of the Indians. They were pretty unequivocal on that. And basically, they were very afraid, and with good reason. There was a lot of violence. A lot of raiding had gone on. The people in the East, who were basically a little safer and distanced and could afford to be more philosophical, were very opposed to these tactics.
Well, their Indians were already gone.
True, true. And basically they were basing most of their knowledge of Indians on having read The Last of the Mohegans, which was a very, very popular novel at the time. And they felt like, well, if I've read that, I know all about Indians. So that was kind of a cause of a lot of these generals in the West saying, you know, these people don't really understand what we're dealing with. But it's important, as you pointed out, to realize the whole winter campaign of this 1868 was based upon retaliations for certain raids that had been made against Kansas citizens, border citizens, and some truly horrific things had happened. You know, various farms had been attacked, women had been kidnapped, railroad crews had been attacked. But the reason some of those raids had been going on was basically because the tribes were upset because the government hadn't lived up to its treaty obligations. They'd signed a big treaty, the Medicine Lodge Treaty, where they'd promised the tribes all of these food and annuities and so forth. But unfortunately, Congress never bothered to ratify that treaty and never appropriated any funds for it. And so they were pretty upset when they'd given up all their land and weren't getting anything in return. And so they'd been making these raids. Well, then the Army said, well, we're going to punish them for making these raids. And so it just went on and on and on. But so it was just a very violent time. There was plenty of atrocities on both sides of the fence, but the attack of Black Kettle's village was just particularly poignant and sad in that he was the one Cheyenne chief that really had tried to make peace. His people had been massacred at Sand Creek 4 years earlier, which was one of the reasons the Eastern reporters knew all about Black Kettle. They had reported on it at that time. And so he was already somewhat famous, and famous for his peace stance, and was really a little bit unpopular in the Cheyenne Nation at that time. Because he had tried so hard to make peace with the whites. There's even the theory that one of the reasons his group was so exposed and by themselves on the Washita, as opposed to the rest of the tribes being a little farther downriver, was that they were kind of shunning him for his peace stance and not wanting to associate as much. And so, but it was a really tragic situation, although the Army never backed down and never recanted over what they had done. They said, you know, we went down there to fight Indians, and that's what we did. So.
Yeah. Well, and then it led a few years later to that little situation up north, didn't it?
Yes, the problems continued. Actually, they certainly did.
For quite a while longer. Well, we have just a very brief time, but I do want to tell you how much I appreciated seeing all of this from the points of view of the characters in the book. I mean, it's not a dry history or something. You do you bring out the I guess the individual human element to it, and I enjoyed that very much.
Thank you. I always try in my historical fiction to kind of find the little stories inside the big stories, and I think that really humanizes history for us all and makes us feel a connection maybe with the past and helps us understand the present a little bit better, perhaps.
Yeah. I think it does. And I want to thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
We've had with us Michelle Black. She's been telling us about her book, An Uncommon Enemy. You can find it at your library and your favorite bookstore. Michelle Black's work has been honored by the National Writers Association, the Colorado Center for the Book, the Oklahoma Center for the Book, the Colorado Independent Publishers Association, and the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers. You can find out more about Michelle and her upcoming book, Solomon Spring, by visiting her website, www.readthewest.com/michelleblack.htm. Coming up next, we have Susie Beasley talking with Ruby Soutier about a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.
Ruby, tell us about Long Lost by David Morrell.
Well, David Morrell, in case you've forgotten, he is a well-known writer. He has written thrillers. He's the one that unleashed Rambo on the world
Do we have an estimate on the amount of time I have for the book
the
reviews?
thing that I've always liked about David Morrell is the fact that he writes page-turner thrillers. And for a while, it was like he wasn't writing those anymore. But with Long Lost, he's back to writing the thriller.
Right.
This is a terrific novel. This is the story of a man named Brad Denning, and he's an architect and he lives in Denver. But when he was a child, his younger brother Petey disappeared, believed to have been kidnapped or killed. Nobody knows what happened to him. He just vanished and was never seen or heard from again. Well, Brad is on a television show, one of the morning shows, because he designs great buildings.
Right.
And he's becoming fairly famous. And so they interview him. And the next thing you know, long lost Petey start crawling out of the woodwork. And he gets really tired of all of these long lost brothers coming forth. But he is accosted on the street by a man who claims to be Petey. And this particular Petey knows things that only the real Petey would know. So Brad takes him out to lunch and they have a long conversation, and he's really convinced this is his brother. So he takes him home to meet his wife and his son. And Petey, or Peter as he likes to be known since he's now an adult, is very polite and very well-mannered and very nice, and you keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, so to speak, which of course it does.
And this is when all the action and, as they say, everything goes.
Right, and this is one of those books that when you reach a certain point in it, you just are there turning those pages as fast as you can and reading to find out what happens. It is a great read.
Right. So without even, giving anything away, the reader of this book would just totally be very enthralled by it.
If they like thrillers and they like the real lean, tense, exciting kind of thriller, this is the book for them.
So David Morrell, after being gone for a while, has come back with Long Lost. This is a fairly new book, and it's available at your local library and perhaps your local bookstore. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, Ruby.
Thanks, Ruby and Susie. After a short break, I'll be back to tell you about some books I enjoyed.
When you read to your child for just 15 minutes a day, you're doing so much more than just reading. You're building a bond that lasts a lifetime. Hi, I'm Elisa Johnson with the Metropolitan Library Commission, and I urge you to read to your children. Not only will they learn to love to read, but they'll be a better student. Our children's librarian will help you find just the right book. The next time your child hands you a book, take the time to read. You'll both be glad you did.
This first book I want to share with you is a collection of photographs. They are truly incredible photographs. They are both works of art and a record of one of the most interesting things that happened in the 20th century as well. The book is entitled South with Endurance, Shackleton's Antarctic Expedition 1914-1917, The Photographs of Frank Hurley. Now, if you don't know anything about Shackleton's adventures in the Antarctic, they were absolutely horrendous. He and his crew intended in 1914 to be the first group to actually cross the Antarctic going by the South Pole. They were going to start at one end and use dog sleds to get all the way to the other. In 1914 they reached the the Weddell Bay, but their ship Endurance, which was a wooden sailing ship, quickly found itself caught in the ice. And they sat on ice floes and watched until 9 months later the Endurance actually was crushed in the ice. Most of the men managed, or actually all of the men managed to make it to Elephant Island, which is frankly just a rock with some moss on it, while Shackleton and a few others in a lifeboat managed to traverse 350 miles of the worst ocean and worst weather in the world to get to an outpost where he could arrange rescue. It took 3 attempts until he was able to get a ship back and pick up the rest of his men in late 1916, early 1917. And miraculously, none of them were killed. Also miraculously, the photographer, Frank Hurley, was able to continue photographing all of this time. These are incredible photographs taken under the most miserable conditions on Earth. There is one unique set of photographs of a gentleman in his summer clothing and his winter clothing, and apparently in summertime you'll take the hood off of your coat, and that is summer clothing in the Antarctic. If you're interested in photography or great adventure, this is a book I think you will enjoy. Now, if you have a dog and are having a little bit of trouble with the dog, or just want to expand what the dog can do, this is a wonderful book. It's the new complete dog training manual by Bruce Fogel, DVM. He's an award winner. This is a great book, beautiful photographs that'll help you and your dog get along much, much better. Coming up next, we have Kids Corner. I subbed for Kelly Rhea and talked with Heidi Johnson about some books for our young people. Heidi, it looks like you brought a couple of neat books for us tonight.
Hey, BJ. Yeah, I thought they were pretty interesting books for kids. The first one is called Play Gently, Alfie Bear, by Catherine Walters. It's a cute book for anybody who has new siblings and really doesn't know quite what to do with them yet, can't play rough and tumble with them yet. You cannot play rough games of any sort. So Mother Bear here is showing her child how to deal with his baby siblings. And he is really meaning well. He goes out, he tries to find a fish for him to eat till Mom tells him, well, they cannot eat something like that yet. So he tries, something sweet smelling, but he brings something back that the babies are allergic to. So all of his best intentions just, they don't turn out the way he meant them, till at the very end where he's very dejected and is out in the rain and just doesn't want to have to face the tragedy anymore, so to speak. He sees the rainbow, and the small little bears just love the rainbow, but what they even love more is their big brother that found it for them. So it has a happy ending, the story does.
Oh, good.
And it shows that there is good things about small siblings after all.
So this is the book Mom and Dad need to check out right before the new baby's born, huh?
It would not hurt to do that. Maybe make it a little bit less traumatic.
Right. Yes, I can remember those days. They could be pretty awful.
Yes. The second one I brought is a biography for small children about Frida Kahlo, the Mexican painter. It shows how she got to paint. Apparently she had a very tough life. She had polio when she was a small child, could not properly walk. After that, she was in a traffic accident, and her painting really was how she expressed her feelings. She would not cry, but she showed her characters crying. And to this day, people still love to go to the museums to see her paintings, which have a lot of Mexican folk life incorporated into them, and the colors are certainly gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. So this still is a book that would be read to a child?
Would be read to a small child or look at with the parents. There are a lot of fun pictures in there, very beautiful pictures. So a child could certainly enjoy the pictures on their own, and then with the parents' help, maybe read about the life of Frida.
Okay. Thank you, Heidi. And remember, you can find these books at your library and your favorite bookstore. Now it's time for the New York Times bestseller list. We'll start out with hardback fiction. Number 10 on that list is Dragons of a Vanished Moon by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. The Summons by John Grisham, The Shelters of Stone by Jean Auel, Mount Vernon Love Story by Mary Higgins Clark, The Nanny Diaries by Emma McLaughlin and Nicola Krauss, In This Mountain by Jan Karan, Fire Ice by Clive Cussler with Paul Kemprekos, The Emperor of Ocean Park by Stephen Carter. Number 2 is The Beach House by James Patterson and Peter De Jong. Number 1 is Hard 8 by Janet Ivanovich. On the nonfiction list, number 10 is Lucky Man by Michael J. Fox, Once Upon a Town by Bob Greene, Profiles in Courage for Our Time, edited by Carolyn Kennedy, Firehouse by David Halberstam, Master of the Senate by Robert Caro, A Mind at a Time by Mel Levine, John Adams by David McCullough, The Right Words at the Right Time, edited by Marlo Thomas, Stupid White Men by Michael Moore is number 2, and number 1 is You Cannot Be Serious by John McEnroe with James Kaplan. On the children's list, number 10 is Junie B. Jones is a Graduation Girl by Barbara Park, Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, Princess in the Spotlight by Meg Cabot, Holes by Louis Sekar, Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones by Patricia Reedy, Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer, Scooby-Doo the movie adapted by Suzanne Wayne, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. Number 2 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and number 1 is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, also by J.K. Rowling. Coming up next, we have Doug Benton and Clyde Martin. Doug Benton is with the Metropolitan Library System and the Oklahoma Gazette, and Clyde Martin is well known as a radio opera host and actor, and they have a book they're just dying to share.
Thanks, and hello again, everybody. I'm here today with Clyde Martin. Clyde, good to see you.
Well, thank you, Doug.
It's been a while since we
Yes.
actually got together to tape one of these
I'm
programs.
between shows.
Yes. And Clyde has a book about that singing stuff. What is
Well,
that?
well-
What's that word again?
I haven't had one in quite some time now, you know.
All right.
Yes, this is a book called Icons of Opera. And it's by a British author named Matthew Boyden. And I think it's a pretty good book, but you know, when it comes to books like this, we have discussed the fact that some people are included who maybe shouldn't be,
Yeah.
and other people who should be aren't here.
Right.
On the other hand, most of this has people that deserve to be, but as I say, there are several that I wish were in here. The problem with me, as far as this book is concerned, is the title. Icons. To me, an icon is, well, someone beyond being a superstar, someone
Right.
in the top pantheon, you know. And indeed, most of these people are in that category, but there are a few that are in here really not for their contributions to the world of opera, but for other things. And I understand that. The most obvious being Marian Anderson. Now, she only sang in one opera at the Met.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
One opera, Mass Ball. And she did it for 2 seasons, very late in her career, but she was the first African American to sing at the Met. Therefore, she's in here. The same thing with Grace Bumbry, although Grace Bumbry had a much more extensive operatic career than Marian Anderson. But she was the first African American to sing at Bayreuth. And she was dubbed the Black Venus when she did Tannhäuser at Bayreuth. But the most controversial person in here is Mario Lanza.
Oh.
Ask me why.
Why would that
Well, I'll tell you. He of course only sang in one opera in his entire life, and that was Madame Butterfly. And one of the critics said, yes, he did that, but all the tenor has to do in Madame Butterfly is one aria in the first act and a couple of screams in the last act. Anyway, but he's here because the author says he introduced more people to opera, really, than almost any other person because of his films, of course. Yes. Now, there is someone in here, and I want to show a picture of her. This being a British publication, there are a number of British singers in here, and some of them I question whether they should be, but one definitely is in here and deserves to be, and that is Dame Eva Turner. Now this, I want you to get a shot of this picture.
She looks decidedly unpleasant in that shot.
This is her great role of Turandot. And I'm sure Dame Eva, who was at OU, of course, for 10 years after she retired from singing, I'm sure she would not have approved of this picture being in here.
Well, despite that, it's Icons of Opera. Clyde, thank you for bringing it in. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. We'll see you all again soon.
We are more than 300 strong. We are diverse from all walks of life. We are musicians. We are teachers. We are computer experts and business leaders, each with the same goal, to meet the information needs of the people of Oklahoma County. We are the librarians of the Metropolitan Library System. How can we help you?
A month or two ago, I was able to talk with Gary Rodriguez about some of his recent books. Gary is a computer systems analyst and a frequent guest on Read About It. I think you'll enjoy what he had to say. Gary, what have you got for us tonight?
I've got a book called Into the Rising Sun by Patrick O'Donnell. He was the author of a pretty well-known book called Beyond Valor, and it's in their own words, World War II veterans, Pacific veterans, reveal the heart of combat. And something that always strikes me about these oral histories is every one of them I've read, they're always talking about how they interviewed a guy and in a week or a day even, these guys will just die. Because it's like, I've told my story now, if somebody's heard it, and they pass on. And we're losing, World War II veterans, 1,000 a day is what the estimate is. So it's important that we get these oral histories. The book it's real easy to read. It's an interesting read because the author explains what was happening, like different kind of campaigns or why things were like they were. Okay, they're getting ready to invade this island. Okay, then they do an oral history of a guy about the preparation, or sitting in the hold of the landing ship tank or the LST. And they're going to run the little Amtraks off, and they're fully loaded, and they're choking and about to die of asphyxiation from the exhaust in the hold before they open it up. And then it's something that oral history is really the only way to hear how all this stuff happens. Little things that the big picture. Your buddy next to you keeps getting seasick, so and you're trying to keep from getting seasick with him, but and things like that.
Well, and the way this book is made up, it sounds like it's the sort of thing that you can pick up and read a little bit and put it down and then come back to it too. It's not something that you have to maintain the thread of.
Right, because it's chronological. It starts out with the island campaigns, why they started the island campaigns, and then it steps through it. But by the same token, each one of them is almost separate and complete. They're cumulative, but not.
So it's the individual history. This is what I did, and this is the way I felt on Iwo Jima or Okinawa or on the flight deck of a ship.
Right. And the thing that really gets you more than anything, it talks about buddies that got blown away and their guilt for how did I survive, and that type of thing. There's a lot of that in there. Just the horrors of war. That's what this book really talks about.
Well, and as you said, a lot of people are starting to do this now, but it sounds like this is a particularly well done book since it places these oral histories in context, because most of us don't know that much about it. So just hearing, well, we were getting ready to land, you don't even know where or why.
Yeah, well, in a lot of cases, they would tell the things that were wrong. That reading what the author put in there, and then they see the oral history, it's what they truly believed happened, didn't actually happen. So it's a real easy book to read, and it's a good comprehensive book.
You think it might be a good place for someone to start learning about World War II?
Really, I think it's kind of like a middle. You need a little more of the overall strategy maybe, because it doesn't get into that kind of detail. But the book is called Into the Rising Sun, Oral History of World War II Pacific Veterans by Patrick K. O'Donnell.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
You can find this book at your library and your favorite bookstore. Check us out at our website, www.metrolibrary.org. Thanks for being with us this time, and we'll see you again next time.